这个是真的来叫啊！阿拉中有2万人，所有人都在叫，要命了！就刚刚5分钟前头，叫也没几个了，现在突然之间，所有人都叫了，要死！要命了！再这样弄下去，我跟侬讲，真的要出事体了。
This is a call for an uprising. Welcome to today's show. This is a video that I'm putting on YouTube and the website. Usually this type of content is for the website only, but I feel that people need to see this. And it's very likely that this video will get a strike. So again, I know I say this a lot, but please make sure you sub to my backup channel with the blue background. Take a minute now to pause the video and sub to that channel if you want to watch my content every day, if you enjoy the content. Otherwise, I won't be able to upload it on here for a little while if this does get a strike. And I don't know what the censorship is like right now as far as talking about this subject in China, but I'm sure they don't want you to see what I'm going to show you here. Because while the world is completely distracted by Ukraine, while America is distracted by trying to define what a woman is, or arguing over whether a dude should be allowed to play women's sports, as if that actually, I mean, the insanity, absurdity, and nonsensical thinking in America is just, forget it. You know, we got a country of sitting ducks. And take a look what's going on in China, because if you don't think that's coming to America, think again. China is sitting there and they're doing C190. Let's just call it the zero plan. And what that is complete lockdowns. People are starving, revolting, locked up in their apartments and not allowed to leave. There's a small amount of revolting going on. There's even graphic videos where they're getting people's pets and putting them in bags. Things like that I can't show you on here for obvious reasons, because one, it's unsettling, and two, you might put a hole in your wall. But be prepared for what's going on in China, because it's not just going to spread and happen here. Remember, our grid is a sitting duck waiting to be shut off. So if you think what you're about to see in China is crazy, just imagine it here with no power. Okay? Just imagine it here with no power, because remember, not only do we have the one-niner lingering here in the Great Babylon, but we also have the threat of Russia lingering, because we have presidents and politicians who are playing the role of incompetent fools who can't complete sentences. It's so unbelievably obvious what they're doing. It's amazing to me. The right is falling for it because they're getting riled up and angry at the left for voting for the incompetency. Meanwhile, it's them working together to make it so blatantly clear, because that's what they want to do. They want to make it blatantly clear that Russia is going to shut down and destroy America, when in reality, it's our own government doing it to us. That is what it is. The governments have officially turned on the citizens of the world, and the citizens are now useless to them. And this right here in China is what's coming to America.
It's the biggest urban COVID lockdown in the world. For more than 2 weeks, Shanghai, China's financial powerhouse, has been eerily quiet. The only bustle is at food depots, where there's a daily race to get groceries to millions who aren't even allowed out to shop. Billy Stockton is one of them, an American working in Shanghai. He's been confined to his apartment since late March.
No one knows where to get stuff. No one knows where to get medical help. And it's creating panic and fear and just instability.
Like the angry protests in areas where food actually ran out. In this one, the crowd is shouting, "We are starving." Small groups of residents have been allowed out, but only briefly for COVID testing. And positive cases had no choice. As one patient posted on TikTok, they had to board a special bus and check in to a government isolation center, which is clearly ready for an onslaught of new cases. At the same time, authorities are releasing old cases now testing negative. But this is false freedom. The 6,000 people let go on Monday headed straight back into lockdown at home. In the last 24 hours, the government announced people in some COVID-free neighborhoods would be getting real freedom. But looking out of Billy Stockton's window, there's no sign of that, and only murky details on when it might happen. Meanwhile, Billy's been taking stock of his dwindling food supply. So what are you going to have for supper?
I have sausages, and then they supplied rice, a bag of rice yesterday. So simple stuff like that.
Do you feel as if you're trapped in a bit of a nightmare?
It's beyond surreal. It's just like you kind of have to pull yourself mentally out of it to get through it.
COVID lockdown, Shanghai style. 26 million people, by some measures the biggest city in the world, confined to their homes. But breaking through the silence, drone instructions. There have been desperate complaints of shortages of food, water and medicines, overburdened delivery networks, and growing protests. Public services are in chaos. One sick American, rather than being allowed to go home to isolate, was instructed to bed down on the ground outside a full hospital.
Look, I've been sleeping on the ground.
Man, our lockdowns are just a little different, you know. When they say that you're locked down, there's no going outside, there's no opening your doors. It's, you know, you just kind of do as you're told.
It's not just Shanghai. Across China, some 23 cities and 200 million people are under full or partial lockdown. And that's all having a severe impact on the massive Chinese economy. The Wuhan lockdown at the start of the pandemic in 2020 led to a historic collapse in economic activity in China. Amid the Shanghai lockdown, indicators are plunging again. But despite the draconian Shanghai lockdown, which began on the 28th of March, new COVID cases are continuing to rise, reflecting the awesome transmissibility of the Omicron variant. There are two domestic barriers to getting out of this. First, China's low vaccination rate among the elderly, particularly for the highly vulnerable over 80s.
Over 80 vaccination rate, if we look at the third dose, it's only about 20%. So it's extremely low, much lower than the Western countries. And the vaccination campaign is slowing down dramatically. The objective so far is to mitigate the transmission, to win more time. But if that's the objective, then that should be complied with a faster vaccination campaign and more people get vaccinated. But we don't say this in the data.
The other barrier is politics.
This is very closely associated with President Xi on his political legacy that managed to create a zero-COVID society. And the Chinese population expect a society that is COVID-free.
But the argument is from some that it's creating domestic instability. Does there come a point where there's more instability from the policy than there is from abandoning it?
Well, there's an interesting contradiction here. It's almost like a chicken or egg question, exactly what he wanted. He can't have a stability, but then he cannot have an economic prosperity. What I've noticed quite interesting is that recently the government talking so less about prosperity, but more about the stability. So I think at the end of the day, he'll carry on with zero COVID strategy.
The danger is, though, that the Chinese government has painted itself into an excruciatingly painful economic and social corner.
The lockdown situation in China is not only a threat to the Chinese economy, but the world economy as well, very much including the UK. Shanghai is home to the world's largest container port, which is now hobbled. The fear is of disruption to global supply chains, which are already severely stressed. Plus, China is the biggest single driver of global growth, and analysts are slashing their forecasts. In a nutshell, the Chinese situation ratchets up the stagflationary nightmare, that 1970s combination of high inflation and economic stagnation.
居民同志们，请大家做到不下楼梯，不出家门，不下来遛狗。
Stagnation on the streets of Shanghai. The great fear is that it won't stay there.
You think that's scary? It looks like pictures out of hell. People screaming out their windows, completely locked down by an out-of-control government. And you don't think that this government here in this country is out of control? Are you kidding me? Not only is this government out of control, it's promoting insane behavior and insane people who would be in asylums 50 years ago. And we're giving power to those people, weak people, cupcakes, people who are sitting ducks to be destroyed. Now, other ways that this is going to affect America and the rest of the world is more food supply issues, supply chain issues coming from China, all sorts of supplies, right? You might say, well, you know, they don't grow this or that in China, so what do we have to worry about? Well, they'll just come up with something like I covered months ago, and they'll say, hey, you know what? You can't get that product in America because China makes the box for it, or China makes the glass, or this or that. And they'll continually do it until the food supply chain is so dwindled down that the scene you see in China will be occurring in America. And again, what do Americans care about? Well, they care about what a woman is. Meanwhile, we have these restrictions and lockdowns still going on. And the thing about America right now is, again, they're doing another major push for the bang bangs. Why are they doing it? Because America is one of the most armed countries in the world. And they want you to think that people who are armed are dangerous, people who are going to run around and do things to other civilians, when in reality people who are armed because they're fearful of their own tyrannical governments. And they don't trust them. Why do you think the Department of Homeland Security has made people who question government considered domestic terrorists? What happened to Al-Qaeda? What happened to the boogeyman? Now it's the people in their own country because they've turned on the people in their own country. And they want to brainwash everyone else into thinking that people who question the government are these dangerous people. When in reality, all we're trying to do is alarm everyone else out there of what's going on so they can be prepared for what's about to go down. And what's about to go down is massive food shortages, massive grid shutoffs. If you don't think that this country is waiting, this narrative has been around, just like the narrative for the outbreak has been around for 20, 30, 40 years, talking about there's going to be an outbreak, there's going to be an outbreak. They have been talking about it over and over again, and I've covered it over and over again, how the grid is waiting to be shut off. How why don't we do anything? Well, why wouldn't our own government protect the grid? We got more security at a Walmart than we do around our power grid. And like the clips I showed you in the past, it only will take, I don't know, they said, it would take a minimal amount of people to shut down the entire country's power grid. So imagine what you see in China here in America. They come in and they say, well, China was able to combat the outbreak by shutting everyone down. And you'll have liberal lunatics who will agree with this because they don't have brains in their heads, and they'll go along with whatever Big Brother says because they're like little babies, weak babies. And of course, they think the government's on their side, but they're the first ones the government's going to turn on because they're going to be the ones that aren't prepared and aren't protected. Now, they'll be turning to Big Brother to take care of them, but they're not going to. They are not going to. And when crap hits the fan, it is going to be insane. The fact that this isn't mainstream news over and over again about what's happening in China is unbelievable. It really is. You put on the news, what are they talking about? A black Supreme Court justice. We have the distraction in New York City, of course, trying to fit that into their narrative about color and everything else. They're grasping at straws to try and continually distract the American people from what's happening because they're going to hit them like the Bible talks about God returning like a thief in the night, Christ's return. Everyone's going to be hit like a thief in the night here when this goes down. Because it's just going to happen out of nowhere. People are like, oh, there's going to be like warning signs. Well, these are the warning signs. How much more warning signs do you need? And when it just goes off, what do you expect? I'm not saying it's going to go off tomorrow or go down tomorrow, but right here in China, what you see is the prep for the rest of the world. Massive, massive lockdowns. If you're listening on the website, you probably saw the video I did about when Gates was talking a few months ago. He was talking about how we need to do what Australia did or China did, right? Specifically, he was talking about Australia doing massive, massive quarantine. So the next time that there was an outbreak of this, we need to completely lock everyone down. Well, that's what's happening now. And they use Australia, right, as that's pretty much them saying that's C190. And China is now implementing that. And when they say, oh, it's successful, everyone's going to go, well, we need to do that. And what they don't look at is how it's destroying the economy. And they don't look at is the president of China, is butt buddies with Klaus Schwab, and he meets with all these other world leaders. And they all get together, and this is what they have planned for all of us. The destruction of the economy is part of this. By killing the grid, you destroy the economy. You destroy jobs, you starve people to death. You aren't resetting anything without doing it. You think people are going to, the whole mindset of owning nothing and being happy, what do you think? People like me and you are just going to, they're going to be like, oh, we don't want you to own anything. Give us your house and your cars, and we're just going to hand it to them? No. By shutting off the grid or doing a potential EMP attack, you do lose mostly everything because you're not going to be able to work. The grid's going to come back on and nobody's going to have any money anymore. Oh, it wiped out everything. We don't know who has what in their bank account. We got to start fresh. We got to reset this whole thing. That's how it works. The only way they can get to that is by shutting it down. People comment all the time and they're going, well, Call, how can they do that? It's the beast system. They need the power. They need the 5G. They put all this stuff in for a reason. Of course they did. Of course they did. But don't forget, the 5G works with the EMPs that are happening. So all the crap that's floating in the sky, this magnetized sky that we have, once the grid's back on, all that technology is back and even more enhanced, because if the technology even gets shut off and they do an EMP, they're going to tell people that the safest way to prevent this from ever happening again is to have the technology in your body, because they'll come up with some lie. Oh, your body could fight off any type of attack like that. It's just your electronics on their own. So if it's inside of you, then you're not vulnerable to an attack, and nobody can steal your identity, and nobody can ever take your income away or anything else away. I mean, it's so easy to see what they're doing. And you look at our country, and you look at the incompetency going on, and how anyone could think it's not on purpose is beyond me. It's beyond me. I mean, the president is literally playing Bernie from Weekend at Bernie's on purpose. He's standing up there and he can't even complete a sentence. And then what do we see? Oh, then the right-wing media comes out and everyone's smacking themselves in the head. And it just goes back and forth because they want a finger to be pointed at one another. Because the people on the right go, look at these idiots on the left that voted for this guy. Thanks for voting for this guy. Look what you... Nobody voted for him. Nobody voted for any of them. They created the division. All the secret societies have built this up. This Civil War has been predictive programming, which I'll do another video on the Civil War throughout the movies, throughout everything. They've constantly tried to divide us for what they're about to do. Because when the grid's off and people are going after each other, it's going to be like faction action, right? You'll see races divided completely. You'll see men and women at each other's throats. You'll see the LGZ. You'll see everything. Everyone will be divided because they've already divided everyone. And then when crap hits the fan, people will be like, well, it's okay to go loot and raid conspiracy theorists' houses and stuff like that because they've stocked up and, that kind of a mindset. It's going to be rabid. And these people who are doing this are going to be nowhere to be found. That's why I've been covering them going underground for years. Starting with their tunnels that they've set up. We've talked about how they traffic and do all that in their underground tunnels. What else have we discussed? Why are all these low-life celebrities from Kim Kardashian to Tom Cruise to Mark Zuckerberg to the president, why are all of these people building these massive underground bunkers? I don't know. Why do you think? Because they're going into hiding. And when they come out of hiding, everything's going to be different because a large portion of the population is going to be wiped off. Why are they going to be wiped off? Because the majority of people only have enough food in their house to survive a few days. Maybe a week, depending. I mean, it depends if you have a house, an apartment. You can only stockpile so much. It spoils, it goes bad. People who don't have any food stockpiled, who became dependent on Uber and things like that, which they wanted everyone to become dependent on, they're just going to start raiding people's homes. I mean, it's going to be insanity. And then mix in the fact that there's a chance that the technology could be turned off. They'll go even more insane because people don't even know how to interact with one another. And we live, another thing you can look at to know that this is biblical and this is going on is how cold people have turned towards one another. Everybody despises one another. Go out to the store. People are rude. People won't make eye contact. People have become so obsessed with technology. You sit in a doctor's office or you sit in an office somewhere waiting for an appointment. Every single person is on their phone. Nobody looks at one another. Nobody smiles at one another. It's as if there's no humans in the room. Because they become dependent on technology. With a grid shutdown, what do you think? They're going to suddenly be, can I have some? They're going to be rabid towards one another because they've grown cold of one another. So this is what's going on in China, and there's more extreme stuff going on there. There's stuff with pets. You saw people sleeping in the streets. I mean, it's insanity. It's utter insanity. And if people can't understand that it's about control, like these people who have lined up for their boosts, their fourth round, forget them. Because they're so far gone, everything will kick in for them soon enough. But I mean, these people that don't think that this is about control, I don't know what kind of lollipop land you could possibly live in. I get it when people look at me and they're like, you're a little too extreme. You know, I'll call you too negative. All right, fine, maybe I am. But that's how I've always been. I didn't turn into this suddenly. I've been like this since I was my whole life, since I was a kid. I'm not naive. I don't get walked on. I don't get played. These people are playing everybody on a string. They're puppets. They've turned a country of citizens into a country of zombies who will do whatever they're told by these people because they trust them. And why should they trust them? That's the craziest part. The majority of people, left and right, go, oh, you can't trust your government, right? They just stick with the side that they're on. So they're like, oh, I won't talk crap about Biden because, you know, he's the one that I voted for. So I'm a Democrat, so I'm part of the team. Instead of everyone getting together and going, no. There's way more of us than these people. Why do the rich get to lobby and do all this stuff and stay in power? And then they continue to make us fight amongst each other. That's what everyone should be doing. But what are they doing? They're fighting amongst each other. They're caring about nonsense. We are such a spoiled society. Do you realize how bad that is? From the standpoint of survival, everybody takes running water for granted, food for granted, power, heat, AC. Right? And people are just like, I have money. I'm going to buy a fancy car and I'm going to buy $2,000 shoes. And yeah, what are those people going to do when it hits the fan? Their heads are going to explode because they've taken for granted the most important thing in life, which is what we all need to survive, which is food and water and shelter. And nobody's going to know how to do anything by themselves. We've all been indoctrinated with the school system. You learn nothing in school that could help you survive at all. You can't even, you think maybe they teach us how to make a fire outside, right? But they tell you, oh, that's dangerous. You could cause a forest fire. Oh, okay. But when the grid's down and it's 20 degrees out, you'll wish you knew. Teach you how to plant? No. You learn about rock formations and clouds and fake biology. I mean, just unbelievable wastes of time. And it's all coming right now. It's all hitting the fan right now. And this is going to go fast. Because remember, 2030 is the end of this. Okay, so at any time in between then and now, this grid can go down and these restrictions can come to America. Imagine they lock everybody up in their homes, right? And remember, eventually they want people to have their smart homes, so the technology locks them in. But just imagine when everybody is quarantined worse than before. And look, it's going to be hard in America to get this the way they're doing it in China because the civilians here there are many aware civilians and armed civilians. But unfortunately, they've created a rabid, different species of human that really resides in what they call the left, of people who really are they're so warped in their thinking that, they're about peace and love. They think in their own minds, but they promote grooming. They promote crime. They don't want, everything that they're about and they've been engineered to be about is for what's coming, because those people are going to be triggered, like the zombies that you see in a lot of these movies. And don't forget, the same zombies are the same people that put certain things inside of their bodies that with a grid shutdown, imagine how their bodies are going to react. Like I've said before, like the Travis Scott concert, anyone? Where you have those frequencies cut down on the frequencies in the air that are controlling that. Yeah, that'd be a little frightening. So much stuff's going to go down, but people need to be aware of what's going on in China. I'm sorry I ranted off topic here, but when I see this stuff going on there and I see the mindset here in America, and don't think, for 1 second that Fox News and the right isn't working this too. They're both working both sides and keeping everybody at each other's throats. That's the whole point, the entire point. This is what they've set up from the get-go. This is in all of their teachings, the Masonic teachings, the protocols, everything. They've constantly talked about having these divisions amongst citizens, left, right, whatever you want to call it. While they hide out, everyone is going to be at each other's throat to survive. And I keep saying it, people are like, that's crazy, that's not going to come here. Oh yeah? They are not taking their foot off the gas. This is in full motion. China's now doing it. Food shortages are going to continue to come here. Product shortages, everything. It's just going to slowly keep creeping in, or maybe quickly, depending on your perspective on it. And it's going to hit the fan. Let people know about what's going on in China. And again, if you haven't subscribed to my Blue channel, do so now if you want to watch my content on YouTube. Again, if this channel gets shut down or gets another strike, I can't upload here for a little while, so I'd have to upload over on the Blue channel. But the best way to find the content is on acallforunuprising.com, where you can talk more freely about this stuff for the time being, until, of course, they completely censor the internet, which, of course, is coming. We see all the agendas in place. We've seen the governments of the world completely turn on the citizens, yet the citizens continue to look at one another, fight one another over ridiculous, nonsensical garbage like what a woman is. I mean, that's the main concern here. Oh my, can you believe what? I can't believe it. I can't believe people are locked up. And you don't even know in America that it's still going on, because everyone in America is like, oh, it's over with now. We've come out of it. Except, of course, for the zombies who are still walking around wearing masks. But wait until they just start pumping this again, because they're going to shift right back into it. Fauci's reappeared out of his shadows. He took his little vacation. They're dying down the talks of what's going on in Ukraine. And they are prepping everyone for what China is doing. It's coming to the world. Watch. I thank everyone for being here. Hope you're doing well. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. I'm curious to see what everyone thinks. Stay prepared, stay ready, stay in prayer, and stay alert. Don't fall asleep at the wheel while all this stuff's going on, because you don't want to be sitting there when it happens. You want to be prepped for it. I thank you guys again. God bless all of you and your families.